We face an array of crises in this country, and most are getting worse. We are the fattest population in human history. Think about it. It's quite an accomplishment. We are the fattest, sickest population ever to walk planet Earth. 3/4 of Americans are overweight, more than 40% are obese. I'd like to note that when Barack Obama was elected president, obesity stood at about 35% of Americans. There was a popular cry that all Americans should have health care, and Obamacare was the answer to that cry. Obamacare provided an additional 20 million Americans with health insurance and presumably greater access to medical care. By the time Obama's 8 years were over, obesity stood at 39%. Today, not 20, but 30 million Americans have insurance through Obamacare, and obesity stands at 42%. Clearly, going to the doctor isn't a good strategy for defeating obesity, although this doctor may be able to tailor you a flattering suit jacket. Since obesity is the leading risk factor for COVID-19 deaths, it's not surprising that more Americans have died from the pandemic than people from any other nation. Type 2 diabetes, which rises in lockstep with obesity, is skyrocketing. We spend over $4 trillion per year on healthcare, 11,000 per capita, far and away the most in the world. Switzerland is a distant second at 7,000. Naturally, older people spend more on healthcare than younger people, so at my advanced age, I should be expected to spend far more than 11,000 per year in healthcare. But year after year, I spend zero or very close to zero on healthcare. Now, they say you should have an annual checkup, so I figure, okay, and I go in once a year to visit my doctor and ask him how he's feeling. That's it. Why don't I need more medical care than that? Because I don't eat what this guy eats. The truth is, actually, I may eat as much food as this guy eats, maybe even more, but I eat different food. And unfortunately, our health crisis is just one of our problems. At the same time that we suffer from extraordinary planetary history-making obesity, 38 million Americans suffer from food insecurity, including 12 million children. At least 19 million Americans live in food deserts with no easy access to grocery stores. Our climate is punishing us and affecting our health with wildfires of a scope, frequency, and duration that have never been seen before, especially in the American West. Heat domes have settled over cities that have broken temperature records, sometimes by 15 degrees or more. And if we have to escape to shelters, a pandemic isn't the best time to do that. Where did all these crises begin? Is it even possible to identify an underlying cause? That's the kind of question you might discuss with friends over dinner. Some might feel that our problems are caused by failures of our government and politicians. Some around the dinner table might blame the Democrats. Some might blame the Republicans. Some might call climate change a hoax, although nobody is likely to call the obesity epidemic a hoax. Some may blame capitalism or socialism. Some might attribute our crises to overpopulation. But is it possible that the real problem is dinner itself? What we eat is all bound up with our culture. Americans consume 8 billion chickens per year. That's about 25 whole chickens per year per man, woman, and child. That's part of our culture. We have fast food joints and restaurants like KFC, Chick-fil-A, Buffalo Wild Wings. Chicken wings are associated with watching football. Don't ask me why. In the South, you can find fried chicken jubilees and festivals. Turkey is, of course, the bird of choice for Thanksgiving. Hot dogs are for baseball games and picnics. Burger joints are ubiquitous. Ribs are for barbecues. The ice cream truck is an iconic symbol of a summer treat for children. We eat more animal foods per day than your average lion. The world consumed 130 billion pounds of beef in 2020. The US accounted for roughly 21% of that, even though we're only 4.25% of the world population. So it's impressive. You might say that we're punching 5 times above our weight, even as our weight balloons. Who taught us to eat this way? Our mothers did, and our fathers, and our extended family, our friends and neighbors. We bond with them from infancy, and that bond begins with breastfeeding. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with breastfeeding, although there is a point at which you should stop drinking milk if you have any self-respect at all. All other mammalian species are smart enough to wean themselves. And yet adults, believe it or not, actually drink the milk of other species, something they would never do if it involves suckling. Our bonding with our mothers, our fathers, our families leaves us devoted to, accustomed to every aspect of the cultures in which we were raised. And that means that the foods we were fed with love are the foods we remain attached to. To spurn these foods is to defy our parents who nurtured us. Food gets all bound up with parental love. And so our food cultures are as intimate to us, as personal to us, as central to us as our parents. Everyone naturally likes to feel included in, part of, proud of their own culture. And if anything about that culture is insane, we don't notice it. It looks normal to us. If you're looking at this thinking, what's wrong with this? It looks normal to me. Then let's think about the whole process that culminates in this parking lot. Grain is grown, often on land that was once forested, and that grain is usually grown in a fertilizer-intensive, pesticide-intensive way that degrades the soil and pollutes the streams and rivers and oceans. And that grain is then transported to cattle in a feedlot. The cattle eat the grain, and they're also fed a lot of fish. Collectively, cows eat more fish than whales eat. They're the planet's greatest ocean predator. And they're also fed chicken shit. I think it's fair to say that cattle also reign as the Earth's leading consumer of chicken shit. Now, if you think that's unfair to the cows, well, they get some revenge because chickens, in turn, are fed cow manure. So it's a very well-balanced, scientifically coordinated system. The cattle are pumped up with antibiotics so that they can survive their unnatural living conditions and gain weight quickly in order to be transported to slaughter and turned into meat patties that'll be slathered with sauces so that you don't have to actually taste the rotting flesh, a taste you could never abide if it weren't for those sauces and condiments and salt and sugar. These burgers will bring on disease and death in humans. People nonetheless line up in cars, spewing their exhaust to give their orders to these air traffic controllers, who in this case wear masks, not because of the car exhaust, but because of a pandemic that was caused by people on the other side of the world eating animals. This is not a natural way to eat lunch. This is a culture of death and destruction on steroids. This is, in a word, insane. And if this looks normal to you, here's what looks normal to those who grew up in Pamplona. The running of the bulls. That's a lovely way to spend an afternoon, isn't it? Notice how it again involves cattle. For some strange reason, humans refuse to leave these animals alone. Here's another cultural insanity. You may not believe this, but there are some cultures that actually have royal babies. That's true. Photographers can't get enough of them, and people enjoy reading all about them. I'm not making this up. These babies are far, far more important than all other babies because they are royal babies. Here are some more cultural contributions to the world. Baby tossing has been in practice for at least 700 years. Babies are tossed from the top of a temple to men who catch the babies with a blanket. This brings good luck. It's illegal now, but it goes on. Finger amputation has been practiced as a form of atonement for one's sin. Self-flagellation is practiced for the same reason. Ritual killing, human sacrifice, has been around for as long as civilization has. Now, does human sacrifice sound ancient and barbaric? In America, healthy young men and women go to college, join fraternities and sororities, and every year since 1959, there's been at least one hazing death, except for 2020 when we were saved by COVID, and usually more than one. Young, healthy people drink gallons of rum until they die of alcohol toxicity. 44 states have laws forbidding hazing, but it goes on in part because it's part of the cherished culture of the Greeks. Now, how far removed is this from ritual killing? And this is part of our culture. As is this. I'm not really sure what stage of the process of turning chicken into chicken nuggets or chicken breast this represents, but either way, ask yourself, how can anyone be insane enough to eat this? Does this carnage look appetizing? And yet people eat this and they think it's normal. It's part of our culture, after all. This is also part of our culture. This is something we do at the risk of creating a bird flu pandemic that could wipe out half of humanity. We cram 20,000 or 30,000 birds together in ammonia-laced giant warehouses. And relax, these are considered cage-free birds. This is also normal in our culture. This is not part of our culture. This is dog meat for sale on the street. I'll note that there's an annual dog meat festival in Yulin, China, whose organizers claim that the dogs are killed humanely and that eating dog is no different from eating pork or beef. I'm highly skeptical that they kill dogs humanely, but they're absolutely right that eating dog is no different from eating pork or beef, both in terms of health and in terms of cruelty. This is the processing of chickens. It's ironic, isn't it, how it looks like they're hanging on for dear life? Do we slaughter animals because we need to? Well, very few people ever step into a slaughterhouse, and few would ever want to because it's hell on earth. But is it necessary to slaughter animals? No, we slaughter animals not because we need to, but because eating animals is normal as a royal baby, or the running of the bulls, or a fraternity hazing. Our parents who loved us fed us animals. Animal foods are advertised on television. Surely animal foods must be good for us. Well, on one condition, and only one condition, it may be true that animal foods are good for us. If the world is flat. Now, what's the argument made by the free thinkers in the Flat Earth Society? It boils down to this. Ignore all images of a spherical blue planet Earth that have allegedly been taken from space. Those must have been faked. Ignore the tall tales of boats and planes that have circumnavigated the globe. Those can't be verified. Ignore gravity. There could be some other reason why things fall down. How do we know for sure that the Earth is flat? It's simple. We focus on our own experience. We've never seen in our daily lives the Earth look like a ball. Go to the seashore, look out towards the horizon. It looks pretty flat. I guarantee you that our caveman ancestors believed that the Earth was flat. Therefore, when it comes to diet, let's eat what the cavemen ate, a paleo diet. If we ignore all scientific evidence and focus on our own experience, on what seems self-evident, that people are meat eaters, that we've always been meat eaters, then we can continue to consume animals. And as long as we don't place the grill too close to the edge, we're good.